Maya Chen wiped flour from her hands and glanced at the ancient clock hanging above her bakery's entrance. The morning rush had ended, leaving behind the familiar comfort of warm ovens and the sweet scent of fresh pastries. She had built this life carefully, brick by brick, choosing the small farming colony of Haven's Rest specifically because nothing ever happened here. The settlement stretched across rolling green hills, populated by families who grew grain and raised livestock for the inner systems. Maya's bakery sat at the heart of the tiny downtown, sandwiched between Chen's hardware store, run by her adoptive father, and a medical clinic operated by Dr. Reeves, an elderly woman who had delivered half the babies on the planet. Maya preferred it this way: quiet, predictable, safe. She was arranging the afternoon selection of fruit tarts when the door chimed. A young man entered, his clothes marking him as one of the agricultural workers from the eastern settlements. He approached the counter with nervous energy, constantly glancing over his shoulder. "What can I get you today, Marcus?" Maya asked. She knew most of her customers by name after 3 years of serving them daily coffee and pastries. "Actually, Miss Chen, I need to tell you something." Marcus fidgeted with his cap. "There's been ships coming and going from the spaceport. Not the usual freight haulers. These are different. Military-looking." Maya's blood turned cold, but she kept her expression neutral. "Probably just a routine inspection. The Agricultural Council sends people to check on our exports sometimes." "Maybe," Marcus said, though he didn't sound convinced. "But Sarah at the communications center said they've been asking questions. About residents. About who's been here how long." He paused, studying Maya's face. "They mentioned your name specifically." The tart Maya was holding slipped from her fingers, shattering against the floor. She knelt quickly to clean it up, buying herself time to think. After 3 years of peace, had they finally found her? "I'm sure it's nothing," she said, forcing a smile. "You know how these government types are. Always checking paperwork, making sure everything's in order." Marcus nodded, though concern still creased his features. "Just thought you should know. My mom always said information is better shared than hoarded." After he left, Maya locked the bakery's front door and flipped the sign to closed. She climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment above the shop, her mind racing. The walls of her small living room were decorated with paintings of peaceful landscapes and family photos that weren't really of her family. Everything designed to project the image of a simple baker who had always lived this quiet life. She moved to her bedroom and pulled aside a loose floorboard, revealing a metal box she hadn't opened in 3 years. Inside lay items from her previous existence: a military-grade data pad, identity documents bearing different names, and a small device that could scramble electronic surveillance. At the bottom, wrapped in cloth, was a medal she had never wanted to receive: the Terran Defense Force Cross of Valor, awarded for actions during the siege of Kepler Station. Maya stared at the medal, remembering the weight of command, the impossible decisions, the lives lost under her leadership. She had been Commander Elena Vasquez then, one of the youngest officers ever to lead a deep space tactical unit. The woman who had held the line against impossible odds when the Zephyrian Empire launched their surprise attack on humanity's outer colonies. She had saved 30,000 civilians. The cost had been her entire fleet and most of her crew. The official reports called her a hero. The media painted her as humanity's greatest military mind. But Maya knew the truth about the choices she had made, the sacrifices she had demanded of others. When the ceremonies ended and the crowds went home, she had walked away from it all. Elena Vasquez had died in a shuttle accident, according to the records. Maya Chen had appeared on Haven's Rest 6 months later, with impeccable documentation and enough credits to start a small business. Now someone was asking questions, and her carefully constructed peaceful existence was under threat. Maya sealed the box and returned it to its hiding place. She had hoped those days were behind her forever, but experience had taught her that the past had a way of catching up, no matter how far you ran. Evening fell over Haven's Rest with its usual tranquility. Maya reopened the bakery for the dinner crowd, serving soup and sandwiches to farmers finishing their workday. She listened carefully to their conversations, searching for any mention of the mysterious ships or government officials. Dr. Reeves stopped by just before closing, as she did every evening, for her cup of tea and a slice of honey cake. "You seem troubled tonight." "Dear," the old doctor observed, settling into her usual chair by the window. Maya poured the tea, considering how much to reveal. Dr. Reeves had been kind to her since her arrival, never pressing for details about her past. But Maya had always suspected the woman saw more than she let on. Marcus mentioned some unusual visitors at the spaceport, Maya said carefully. Ah, yes. 3 ships arrived this morning. The officials have been quite thorough in their inquiries. Dr. Reeves sipped her tea thoughtfully. They showed me a photograph, asked if I recognized the woman in it. Maya's hand trembled slightly as she set down her own cup. Did you? The woman in the photograph looked familiar. Older than when I first met her, perhaps. Different hair color, but the eyes were the same. Dr. Reeves met Maya's gaze directly. I told them I'd never seen her before in my life. The 2 women sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of unspoken understanding between them. Thank you, Maya whispered. Everyone deserves a chance at peace, Dr. Reeves replied. But you should know, dear, they don't seem inclined to give up easily. Whatever brought you here, whatever you're running from, it may be time to face it. As the doctor left, Maya realized her hands were shaking. She had built this life on the foundation of a lie, but it was a life she genuinely loved. The simple rhythms of baking and serving her community, the absence of life and death decisions, the freedom from the weight of command. But Elena Vasquez's past was about to collide with Maya Chen's present, and she wasn't sure either identity would survive the impact. Outside, the first of the 3 military ships was landing at the spaceport, its engines cutting through the peaceful silence of Haven's Rest like a sword. Maya barely slept that night. Every sound from the street below made her heart race, wondering if government agents were finally coming to drag her back to a life she had desperately tried to escape. When dawn broke over Haven's Rest, she forced herself to maintain her normal routine, opening the bakery at 6 sharp and beginning the daily bread preparation. The morning customers arrived as usual, but their conversations carried an undercurrent of tension. Word had spread about the military presence, and the farming community was doing what small communities did best, speculating wildly about the reasons behind the unexpected visit. I heard they're looking for a criminal, whispered Mrs. Patterson, the wife of a grain farmer, someone dangerous who's been hiding here. Maya's hands never paused in their kneading motion, but her ears strained to catch every word. Nonsense, replied Tom Bradley, who ran the largest cattle operation in the region. More likely they're here about those pirate raids in the outer systems. Probably want to recruit some of our young people for the military. My nephew said they were asking about business licenses and immigration records, added another voice. Very specific questions about when people arrived and where they came from. Maya served coffee and pastries with practiced efficiency, but internally she was calculating escape routes and contingency plans. She had always known this day might come, but 3 years of peaceful routine had made her soft, complacent. Around mid-morning, the door chimed with particular authority. Maya looked up to see 2 figures in civilian clothes, but their bearing screamed military intelligence. The woman was tall and sharp-featured, with prematurely gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. The man beside her was younger, built like a soldier with the kind of alert posture that suggested he was ready for trouble. Maya Chen? The woman asked, approaching the counter. That's me. What can I get you today? Maya kept her voice steady, professional. Agent Sarah Mitchell, Terran Defense Intelligence. This is Agent David Park. We'd like to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. The bakery fell silent. Every customer pretended to focus on their food while straining to hear the conversation. Of course, Maya said, though I'm not sure what help I can be. Nothing much happens on Haven's Rest. Agent Mitchell smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We're investigating some irregularities in colonial immigration records. Routine verification, mostly. When did you arrive on Haven's Rest? 3 years ago. I have all my documentation if you need to see it. That would be helpful. We're also curious about your background. The records show you came from New Geneva, but we haven't been able to locate any previous employment history there. Maya's adoptive father chose that moment to enter the bakery, his timing either fortunate or suspicious. Chen Wang was a sturdy man in his 60s who had taken her in without question when she arrived, accepting her story of being an orphan looking for a fresh start. Problems, Maya? He asked, his voice carrying the protective tone of a concerned parent. Just some routine questions about immigration paperwork, Maya replied. Agent Mitchell studied the interaction carefully. Are you related to Miss Chen? Adoptive father, Chen Wang answered. Found her sleeping in the storage room behind my hardware store 3 years ago. Poor girl was exhausted, had nowhere to go. Couldn't just leave her there. How noble, Agent Park said, speaking for the first time. His tone suggested he found the story convenient rather than touching. Agent Mitchell pulled out a small tablet and showed Maya a photograph. Have you ever seen this woman before? Maya's breath caught. It was an official military portrait of Commander Elena Vasquez, taken just before the Kepler Station assignment. The woman in the photo wore a crisp uniform and had shorter, darker hair, but the resemblance was undeniable to anyone looking closely. I don't think so, Maya said carefully. Should I recognize her? This is Commander Elena Vasquez. She was declared dead 3 years ago after a shuttle accident, but we have reason to believe she may have survived. Agent Mitchell watched Maya's face intently. We've been tracking false identity documents that were created around the time of her supposed death. The bakery customers were no longer pretending to mind their own business. Maya could feel their stares, their growing realization that their quiet baker might not be who she claimed to be. What does this have to do with Maya? Chen Wang asked, stepping protectively closer to his adoptive daughter. Commander Vasquez was a decorated officer who disappeared after receiving classified information about a new Zephyrian threat. Agent Park explained. Information that makes her a person of significant interest to our national security. Maya felt the walls closing in. They knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to be dangerous. I'm sorry I can't help you, she said. But if this woman is as important as you say, I hope you find her. Agent Mitchell nodded slowly. We will. In the meantime, we'll need you to remain available for further questions. Don't leave the planet without checking with us first. After the agents left, the bakery erupted in whispered conversations. Maya continued working, but she could feel the weight of suspicious stares and nervous energy from her neighbors. Word would spread quickly through the small community. Chen Wang approached the counter once the last customer had left. Maya, he said quietly. I never asked about your past because I figured everyone deserves a chance to start over. But those people aren't going to give up easily. I know. Do you want to tell me who you really are? Maya looked at this kind man who had given her sanctuary without question, who had taught her to repair broken things and find joy in simple work. She owed him honesty, but the truth could put him in danger. I'm someone who made difficult choices during wartime, she said finally. Someone who saved a lot of lives but lost even more. Someone who couldn't live with the weight of command anymore. Chen Wang nodded as if this explained everything. War changes people. Sometimes the heroes need saving too. That afternoon, Maya noticed unusual activity around the town. The agents were conducting interviews, visiting the spaceport records office and examining immigration databases. They were building a case piece by piece. As evening approached, Maya made a decision. She couldn't run again. The agents would track any attempt to leave the planet, but she couldn't simply wait for them to arrest her either. There had to be a third option, something that would protect both her new life and the people who had become her family. Maya locked the bakery early and climbed to her apartment. She retrieved the hidden box and activated the encrypted communicator for the first time in 3 years. If Agent Mitchell wanted to find Commander Elena Vasquez, then perhaps it was time for that conversation to happen on Maya's terms. The signal connected after several tense minutes. This is a secure line. A familiar voice answered. Identify yourself. This is Commander Elena Vasquez, Maya said, using her old military designation for the first time in years. I need to speak with Admiral Harrison immediately. Commander Vasquez is dead. Tell the Admiral that Ghost Protocol 7 is active. He'll understand. The line went silent for a long moment. When it reconnected, a different voice spoke. Elena, is that really you? Hello, Admiral. I think it's time we talked. Admiral James Harrison's voice carried across the encrypted channel with a mixture of relief and frustration that Maya remembered well from their years of working together. 3 years. Elena, 3 years of thinking you were dead, of wondering if we could have done something different at Kepler Station. Do you have any idea what your disappearance did to the fleet? Maya sat in her small apartment above the bakery, surrounded by the simple possessions of her civilian life, while holding technology that connected her to the vast machinery of human military power. I'm sorry, Admiral, but I couldn't continue. After Kepler Station, After what we had to sacrifice, I needed to find another way to live. And now my intelligence people have tracked you down. Agent Mitchell is thorough, I'll give her that. She's been following the trail of your false documents for months. Why now? Maya asked. Why after 3 years? Admiral Harrison's pause stretched long enough that Maya wondered if the connection had failed. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight she had heard only during humanity's darkest hours. Because the Zephyrians are moving again, Elena, and we need Commander Vasquez back. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the familiar dread settle in her stomach. Tell me. 6 months ago, we started detecting unusual Zephyrian fleet movements in the outer systems. Not raids or skirmishes like before, but coordinated repositioning of their main battle groups. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing for something big. How big? We think they're planning a direct assault on Earth. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Earth, the cradle of humanity, home to 12 billion people. The Zephyrians had never been bold enough to strike at the heart of human space before, content to raid outer colonies and disrupt trade routes. What makes you think they have the capability? She asked. Remember those classified reports you received just before Kepler Station? The ones about new Zephyrian weapon technology? Maya did remember. The intelligence had suggested the Zephyrians were developing some kind of advanced energy weapon, but the data had been incomplete, almost fragmentary. She had filed the reports and focused on the immediate tactical situation at Kepler Station. We've learned more since then, Admiral Harrison continued. Much more. The Zephyrians didn't just develop a new weapon, Elena. They developed a way to weaponize stellar energy itself. They can create artificial solar flares, directed energy bursts that can cripple entire star systems. Maya felt her blood turn cold. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. Not if you have access to certain rare minerals found only in a few locations throughout the galaxy. Minerals that exist in abundance in the asteroid fields around Kepler Station. The pieces clicked together in Maya's mind with horrible clarity. That's why they attacked Kepler Station. It wasn't about the civilian population or the strategic position. They were after the mining rights. Exactly. And when you held the line there, when you prevented them from capturing the station, you delayed their weapon development by 3 years. But they've found alternative sources now. Maya stood and paced to her window, looking out at the peaceful streets of Haven's Rest. Children were playing in the evening light, their laughter carrying on the warm air. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that their existence might depend on decisions made in military conferences light years away. What do you need from me, Admiral? The Zephyrian military structure is unlike anything our current commanders have faced. Their tactics, their technology, their way of thinking about warfare. You're the only human officer who successfully defeated them in large-scale combat. I lost my entire fleet, but you won the battle. You saved 30,000 civilians and delayed their weapon program by years. That experience, that understanding of how they fight, it's what we need now. Maya leaned against the window frame, feeling the weight of command settling on her shoulders again like an old, unwelcome coat. There are other capable officers, Admiral. People who haven't been out of the military for 3 years. None who've faced what you've faced. None who understand the cost of victory the way you do. Admiral Harrison's voice softened. Elena, I know what Kepler Station did to you. I know why you walked away. But if the Zephyrians succeed, if they can strike at Earth itself, then everything we've built, everything we've protected, will be lost. Through her window, Maya watched Dr. Reeves making her evening rounds, checking on elderly patients. Marcus was heading home from the fields, probably looking forward to dinner with his family. Chen Wang was closing up the hardware store, counting the day's modest receipts. These people had given her a life worth living. Could she abandon that life to return to the darkness of military command? Could she ask others to make the sacrifices she was no longer sure she could bear? I need time to think, she said. Elena, Agent Mitchell is going to arrest you tomorrow morning. She has enough evidence to prove you're alive and charge you with desertion and falsifying federal documents. Once you're in custody, the media attention will be inevitable. Your quiet life here will be over regardless. Maya felt something cold and hard crystallize in her chest. The peace she had fought to build was already gone. The only question now was whether its destruction would serve any purpose. What are you proposing? Come back voluntarily. Resume your commission. Help us prepare Earth's defenses. In exchange, Haven's Rest remains off limits to media and military personnel. Your friends here get to keep their quiet lives, even if you can't. Maya thought about the metal hidden beneath her floorboards, the weight of decisions that determined who lived and who died. She thought about the faces of the crew members who had followed her orders at Kepler Station, many of whom had never come home. But she also thought about Earth, about billions of people who would face annihilation if the Zephyrians succeeded, about children like the ones playing outside her window, who deserved a chance to grow up in a universe where humanity could thrive. I'll need guarantees, she said finally, written guarantees about Haven's Rest, about the people here who helped me. Done. And I want full operational authority. No political interference, no second-guessing from bureaucrats who've never faced alien weapons. Also done. Maya took a deep breath, feeling Elena Vasquez awakening after 3 years of dormancy. The baker was about to give way to the commander, but perhaps that was always inevitable. I'll contact Agent Mitchell in the morning and arrange a meeting. But Admiral, I need you to understand something. The woman who comes back won't be the same officer who left after Kepler Station. 3 years of peace changed me. I hope it made me better at what I do, not worse. I hope so too, Elena. For all our sakes. The connection closed, leaving Maya alone with the enormity of what she had just agreed to do. Outside, the first stars were appearing in Haven's Rest's clear sky, each one a sun that might host worlds full of life. Tomorrow, she would become Commander Elena Vasquez again. Tonight, she allowed herself one last evening as Maya Chen, the baker who had dreamed of a quiet life until her secret past hit the headlines. She had work to do. Maya woke before dawn and prepared her bakery one final time. She mixed the dough for the morning bread, set out the coffee supplies, and wrote detailed instructions for whoever would take over the business. Every movement carried the weight of ritual, a goodbye to the life she was about to leave behind. At precisely 8 in the morning, she called Agent Mitchell's secure number. "This is Elena Vasquez," she said without preamble. "I believe you've been looking for me." The silence that followed lasted several heartbeats before Agent Mitchell responded. "Where would you like to meet?" "The bakery, 1 hour. Come alone." Maya spent the intervening time saying quiet farewells to the place that had been her sanctuary. She touched the worn wooden counter where she had served thousands of customers, ran her fingers along the shelves that had held her simple dreams. Then she retrieved the hidden box and placed it on the main table, accepting that Elena Vasquez's possessions would once again become part of her daily existence. Agent Mitchell arrived punctually, her sharp eyes immediately noting the military equipment laid out on the table. "Commander Elena Vasquez," she said, the title carrying both respect and accusation. "You've led us quite a chase, Agent Mitchell. Please sit. Would you like coffee?" The agent settled into a chair across from Maya, declining the offered beverage. 3 years of investigating false documents, following financial trails, and tracking immigration records. You covered your tracks well. I had good training. Maya poured herself coffee, noting how her hands remained steady, despite the magnitude of what was happening. "I assume Admiral Harrison has briefed you on the current situation? The Zephyrian threat?" "Yes, he's convinced you're essential to Earth's defense." Agent Mitchell leaned forward. "But I have to ask, Commander, what makes a decorated war hero abandon her post and fake her own death?" Maya stared into her coffee cup, searching for words to explain the weight that had crushed her after Kepler Station. "Do you know what it's like to send 1,800 people to their deaths, Agent Mitchell? To look at tactical displays and calculate which ships to sacrifice so others might survive? To make decisions where every option ends with good people dying? It's called command responsibility. It's what officers sign up for." "Yes, it is. And for years I carried that responsibility well. I made the hard choices, accepted the casualties, focused on the greater good." Maya met the agent's eyes directly. "But after Kepler Station, after watching my entire fleet die while I lived, something broke inside me. I couldn't trust myself to make those decisions anymore." Agent Mitchell studied her carefully. "And now? Can you trust yourself now?" Maya considered the question, probing her own emotional landscape like testing a healing wound. 3 years of simple work, of serving coffee and baking bread, of making decisions that affected only herself and her small community. The weight of command had lifted during those years, replaced by different kinds of satisfaction and responsibility. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I know what happens if I don't try. The Zephyrians will reach Earth and billions will die."
Even if I fail, even if I make the wrong choices, I have to attempt to prevent that outcome. Admiral Harrison wants you reinstated with full honors.
All charges dropped. Full back pay, immediate promotion to fleet command level. I don't want the promotion, or the back pay. I just want the authority to do what needs to be done. Agent Mitchell activated a recording device on the table. For the record, are you Commander Elena Vasquez, formerly declared dead following a shuttle accident 3 years ago? I am. Are you willing to resume active duty with the Terran Defense Force? I am. Then consider yourself officially reactivated, Commander. Agent Mitchell stood and extended her hand. Welcome back to the war. Maya shook the offered hand, feeling the transformation beginning. Elena Vasquez was emerging from the quiet cocoon of Maya Chen's life, bringing with her all the skills and knowledge that had made her one of humanity's most effective military commanders. I'll need transport to Defense Command immediately, Elena said, her tone shifting to match her returning identity. And I want a full intelligence briefing on Zephyrian capabilities and current fleet positions within 6 hours of arrival. Already arranged. Your ship leaves in 2 hours. Good. I have some personal business to conclude first. After Agent Mitchell left, Elena walked to Chen Wang's hardware store. Her adoptive father was arranging inventory, but he looked up as she entered, immediately reading the change in her bearing. It's time? He asked simply. Yes. Chen Wang nodded and moved to the cash register, pulling out a small wrapped package. I saved this for you. Found it in your jacket pocket that first night, but I figured you'd tell me about it when you were ready. Elena unwrapped the package to find her old military identification tags, the ones she thought she had lost during her escape from her former life. You knew who I was? I suspected. A woman doesn't develop your skills with leadership and crisis management from working in civilian jobs. And sometimes when you thought no one was watching, you moved like a soldier. Elena felt tears threaten for the first time since Agent Mitchell had appeared. Why didn't you say anything? Because you needed to be Maya Chen for a while. Sometimes the strongest people need time to heal before they can be strong again. I'm going to miss this life. I know, but Maya Chen was always going to be temporary. Elena Vasquez is who you really are. Elena hugged her adoptive father, drawing strength from his steady presence one final time. Take care of the bakery. Maybe someday I'll come back and we can run it together. I'll keep the coffee warm. Elena's final stop was Dr. Reeves's clinic. The elderly physician was reviewing patient files, but she set them aside when Elena entered. So the birds have come home to roost, Dr. Reeves observed. You knew too. My dear, I've been practicing medicine for 40 years. I've treated soldiers returning from combat and I recognize the signs. You had the particular exhaustion that comes from carrying too much responsibility for too long. Elena sat across from the doctor who had become her confidant during evening tea sessions. Do you think I'm making the right choice? Dr. Reeves considered the question with her characteristic thoroughness. I think you're making the only choice your conscience will allow. But Elena, remember that strength isn't just about carrying burdens alone. The woman who learned to find joy in baking bread, who built relationships with a community, who allowed herself to be helped and cared for, that woman is stronger than the one who left here 3 years ago. I hope so. The challenges ahead will require every bit of strength I can find. Then take Maya Chen with you. She's part of who you are now. Elena smiled, feeling some of the tension in her chest ease. Thank you. For everything. 2 hours later, Elena Vasquez stood at Haven's Rest's small spaceport, wearing her military uniform for the first time in 3 years. The fabric felt strange after so long in civilian clothes, but the weight of command settled on her shoulders with familiar authority. Agent Mitchell waited beside a sleek military transport, its engines already warming for departure. Ready, Commander? Elena took one last look at the peaceful farming community that had given her 3 years of healing. Children were walking to school, farmers were heading to their fields, and smoke was rising from the chimney of what had once been Maya Chen's bakery. I'm ready. As the transport lifted off, carrying her toward whatever battles awaited in the depths of space, Elena touched the identification tags Chen Wang had returned to her. Maya Chen would always be part of her now, a reminder that strength could be found in quiet moments as well as dramatic victories. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin again. But this time, Commander Elena Vasquez would fight with the wisdom of a woman who had learned to find peace in flower and friendship. The journey to Defense Command took 18 hours, giving Elena time to study the intelligence files Agent Mitchell had provided. The data painted a grim picture of humanity's strategic position. The Zephyrian Empire had spent 3 years rebuilding their fleets, developing new technologies, and establishing forward bases throughout the outer systems. Most disturbing were the energy signatures detected near Zephyrian fleet concentrations. The readings matched theoretical models for stellar manipulation weapons, confirming Admiral Harrison's worst fears. The aliens hadn't just developed new weapons, they had learned to weaponize stars themselves. Elena's transport docked at Defense Command Station, a massive orbital facility that served as headquarters for humanity's military operations. The station hummed with activity as personnel prepared for the coming conflict. Officers moved with the urgent efficiency of people who knew they were running out of time. Admiral Harrison met her at the airlock, and Elena was struck by how much he had aged in 3 years. New lines creased his face and his hair had gone completely gray. The weight of protecting humanity's future had taken its toll. "Elena," he said, gripping her hand firmly. "Thank you for coming back." "Thank you for protecting Haven's Rest," she replied. "Those people deserve their peace. Come. The senior staff is waiting for a full briefing." The command center buzzed with controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the positions of human and Zephyrian fleets throughout known space, with angry red markers indicating areas of enemy activity. Technical specialists analyzed sensor data while communications officers coordinated with distant outposts. Admiral Harrison led Elena to a secure conference room where humanity's top military leaders had assembled. She recognized several faces from her previous service, but many were new, promoted to fill positions left vacant by the casualties of the last war. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Harrison announced, "Commander Elena Vasquez." The room fell silent. Elena could feel the weight of their stares, the mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Some of these officers had served under her before Kepler Station. Others knew her only by reputation. General Sarah Martinez, head of tactical operations, spoke first. "Commander, we've reviewed your service record and the classified reports from Kepler Station. Your tactical innovations against Zephyrian forces were remarkable, but that was 3 years ago. How do we know you're still capable of command at this level?" Elena had expected this challenge. "You don't, General, and you shouldn't take it on faith. Give me a simulation scenario using current Zephyrian capabilities. Let me show you how 3 years of civilian life have affected my tactical thinking." Admiral Harrison nodded to his aide, who activated the room's central holographic projector. A 3-dimensional battlefield appeared in the air above the conference table, showing human and Zephyrian fleets positioned for engagement. "Scenario 7 Alpha," the aide announced. "Zephyrian assault fleet approaching the Mars defense perimeter. Human forces are outnumbered 3-1. The enemy possesses stellar manipulation weapons." Elena studied the tactical display, noting the positions of ships, orbital platforms, and defensive installations. The Zephyrian formation was different from what she remembered, more dispersed and aggressive. They had learned from their previous encounters with human forces, but Elena had learned too. 3 years of quiet reflection had given her time to analyze her previous battles, to understand not just what had worked, but why it had worked. More importantly, her civilian experience had taught her to value individual lives in ways that pure military thinking sometimes overlooked. The conventional approach would be to concentrate our forces at the primary defense stations, she said, using a laser pointer to highlight positions on the display. Create a killing field where superior firepower could offset their numerical advantage. "That's exactly what our current battle plan calls for," General Martinez confirmed. "It won't work. The Zephyrians have learned to expect concentrated defenses. Their stellar manipulation weapons are specifically designed to overwhelm fixed positions." Elena manipulated the holographic controls, showing how Zephyrian energy weapons could disable entire defense platforms. "We need to think differently." Elena began repositioning the human fleet elements, spreading them across a much wider area of space. Instead of creating fortress-like defensive positions, she arranged the ships in small, mobile groups that could support each other while remaining difficult targets for the Zephyrians' massive energy weapons. "The key is understanding what the Zephyrians value," she explained as she worked. "They're a hierarchical species that prizes order and control. Their battle formations reflect this psychology. They expect us to fight like them, with rigid command structures and predictable tactics. She highlighted a group of civilian transport ships at the edge of the system. But humans excel at improvisation and individual initiative. We're going to use civilian vessels as mobile sensor platforms, creating a detection network the Zephyrians won't expect. When they commit to attacking what appears to be our main force, these smaller groups will hit their flanks. Colonel David Chen, the fleet's chief tactical officer, frowned at the display. Commander, you're asking civilian crews to operate in a combat zone. The casualties could be enormous. Elena paused, remembering the faces of Haven's Rest residents who had welcomed her without question. Colonel, the Zephyrians aren't planning to leave civilians alive anyway. If we lose this battle, every human in the system dies. The question isn't whether civilians will be at risk, but whether their risk serves a purpose. She continued repositioning fleet elements, but her movements had changed. Where before she had calculated positions based purely on tactical advantage, now she was considering the human cost of each decision. The civilian transports would be equipped with better shields and protected by dedicated escort squadrons. The stellar manipulation weapons require enormous energy buildup, Elena continued. The Zephyrians can't fire them continuously, and they can't target small, fast-moving groups effectively. We'll hit them during their recharge cycles when their main weapons are offline. General Martinez studied the revised battle plan. It's risky. You're gambling that the Zephyrians won't adapt quickly enough to counter your dispersed formations. Every battle is a gamble, General. But this plan plays to our strengths while exploiting their weaknesses. The Zephyrians are powerful, but they're not flexible. They'll expect us to fight their kind of war. Elena made one final adjustment to the fleet positions. We're going to fight a human war instead. The simulation ran, showing the projected battle unfold. The Zephyrian fleet approached aggressively, focusing their stellar weapons on what appeared to be the main human defense line. But as their energy weapons charged and fired, human strike groups emerged from unexpected positions, hitting the enemy formation from multiple angles. The civilian sensor network provided real-time intelligence that allowed human forces to anticipate Zephyrian movements. When the aliens tried to concentrate their fire, they found their targets had already moved. When they attempted to spread out to cover more space, they exposed themselves to coordinated attacks from Elena's mobile squadrons. The simulation ended with the Zephyrian fleet in retreat, having lost 60% of their vessels while the human defenders retained most of their fighting capability. The conference room remained silent for several moments as the officers absorbed what they had witnessed. Remarkable, Admiral Harrison said finally. Your tactical thinking has evolved, Elena. The woman who planned Kepler Station would have accepted higher casualties to achieve victory more quickly. Elena nodded. 3 years of civilian life taught me that every number on these displays represents someone's family, someone's dreams. The goal isn't just to win battles, it's to preserve what makes humanity worth defending. General Martinez leaned back in her chair. Commander, I withdraw my earlier concerns. You clearly retain your tactical abilities, but you've gained something more important: wisdom. Admiral Harrison activated the room's main communications system. All department heads, this is Admiral Harrison. Commander Elena Vasquez will assume operational command of the Mars Defense Initiative, effective immediately. Full cooperation and resources are authorized. As the meeting broke up and officers began implementing Elena's tactical plans, she remained in the conference room with Admiral Harrison. Elena, there's something else you need to know, he said quietly. The intelligence about Zephyrian stellar weapons came from a human source inside their territory. A spy? A prisoner of war who managed to get information to us before she died. Captain Lisa Morrison, one of your former officers from Kepler Station. Elena felt her chest tighten. Lisa Morrison had been her communications officer, a brilliant young woman who had volunteered for dangerous reconnaissance missions. She survived the battle? She was captured when her escape pod was recovered by Zephyrian forces. She spent 3 years in their prison camps learning about their technology and culture. The intelligence she provided is what allowed us to understand the true scope of their threat. Elena closed her eyes, remembering Captain Morrison's eager face during pre-mission briefings. Another life affected by the choices made at Kepler Station. She died getting this information to us? She died ensuring humanity would have a chance to survive. Elena, the people who served under you at Kepler Station, they didn't die for nothing. Their sacrifice bought us the time we needed to prepare for this moment. Elena touched the identification tags Chen Wang had returned to her, feeling the weight of past and present responsibility, merging into something new. Then we'd better make sure their sacrifice means something, she said. How long do we have before the Zephyrians reach Earth? Our best estimates suggest 6 weeks, maybe less. Elena straightened, feeling the full weight of command settling on her shoulders once again, but this time it felt different. The burden was shared with the memory of Maya Chen's peaceful mornings, Chen Wang's steady wisdom, and Dr. Reeves' compassionate insight. Then we'd better get to work, Commander Elena Vasquez said, ready to fight the most important battle of humanity's existence. The next 5 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and strategic planning. Elena threw herself into the work with an intensity that surprised even her veteran staff. She reviewed every aspect of humanity's defensive capabilities, from the newest battleships to the smallest civilian vessels that could be pressed into service. Her command style had evolved during her time away, where the old Elena Vasquez had relied on rigid hierarchies and detailed battle plans. The new Elena encouraged initiative and creative thinking from her subordinates. She held daily briefings where junior officers could propose tactical modifications, and she listened carefully to suggestions from enlisted personnel who understood the practical realities of space combat. Commander, Lieutenant Sarah Kim reported during one morning briefing, the civilian transport crews are requesting permission to mount additional defensive systems on their vessels. Approved, Elena replied without hesitation. But make sure they understand that their primary mission is intelligence gathering, not direct combat. I want those crews to survive this battle. The preparations weren't limited to military hardware. Elena had insisted on establishing secure communication channels with every human colony in the outer systems. If the Mars defense failed, these settlements would need advance warning to attempt evacuation or implement their own defensive measures. 3 weeks into the preparation period, Elena received an unexpected visitor. Agent Mitchell appeared in her office carrying a secured datapad and wearing an expression of grim satisfaction. Commander, we've intercepted Zephyrian communications that confirm your tactical assessment, Mitchell announced. They're expecting us to concentrate our forces at the traditional defensive positions. Elena studied the translated communications, noting the confidence evident in the alien commander's discussions. The Zephyrians were planning a direct assault, relying on their stellar manipulation weapons to overwhelm human defenses through sheer destructive power. They're making the same mistake they made at Kepler Station, Elena observed. They're fighting the war they want to fight instead of adapting to the war they're actually in. There's more, Mitchell continued. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected the main Zephyrian fleet. They're moving toward the Sol system faster than our projections indicated. Elena felt her pulse quicken. How much faster? They'll reach Mars orbit in 10 days, not 3 weeks. The news hit Elena like a physical blow. 10 days wasn't enough time to complete all the defensive preparations she had planned. Ships were still being refitted, crews were still training on new tactical protocols, and the civilian sensor network was only half operational. We'll have to accelerate everything, Elena said, already calculating which elements of the defense plan could be simplified or eliminated. Cancel all non-essential modifications and focus on core battle readiness. I want every ship that can fly ready for combat in 72 hours. The next 3 days tested Elena's leadership abilities to their limits. She worked 18-hour shifts, moving between engineering departments, training facilities, and command centers. When exhausted technicians made mistakes, she helped them fix the problems instead of simply issuing orders. When nervous civilian crews questioned their assignments, she took time to explain the strategic importance of their missions. Dr. Martinez from the station's medical department found Elena in her office at 3 a.m, reviewing tactical displays while surviving on coffee and determination. Commander, you need to rest, the doctor said firmly. You're pushing yourself toward physical collapse. Elena looked up from her work, noting the concern in the physician's expression. It reminded her of Dr. Reeves's gentle insistence on self-care during their evening conversations on Haven's Rest. There's too much to do, Doctor. People are depending on these preparations. People are depending on you being mentally sharp when the battle begins. Exhausted commander makes poor decisions. Elena saved her work and stood, Recognizing the wisdom in the doctor's advice, Maya Chen would have understood the importance of rest and renewal. The baker had known that bread needed time to rise properly, that forcing the process only led to inferior results. 4 hours, Elena conceded. But wake me immediately if anything critical develops. Those 4 hours of sleep proved crucial. Elena woke with a clearer perspective on the tactical challenges ahead, and she immediately identified several simplifications that would improve the defense plan's effectiveness while reducing its complexity. 7 days before the projected Zephyrian arrival, Elena received a communication that changed everything. The message came through channels so secure that only 5 people in the human government had access to them. Commander Vasquez, the voice belonged to Director Patricia Wells, head of Terran Intelligence. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention. Elena secured her office and activated the highest level of encryption protocols. Go ahead, Director. We've made contact with a Zephyrian defector. She claims to have information about a critical weakness in their stellar manipulation weapons. Elena felt her heart race. Intelligence from within the enemy's command structure could be the difference between victory and annihilation. How reliable is this source? Unknown. She approached one of our deep space monitoring posts 3 days ago, requesting asylum. She claims to be a former weapons engineer who became disillusioned with the Empire's aggressive expansion. What does she want in exchange for the information? Sanctuary for herself and her family, and she wants to speak directly with the human commander responsible for the Kepler station defense. Elena paused, understanding the implications. She wants to speak with me. Yes, Commander, this could be a trap. The Zephyrians might be trying to eliminate you before the battle begins. Or it could be the intelligence breakthrough we need to save Earth. Elena made her decision with the same decisive clarity that had characterized her best command moments. Arrange the meeting, but I want full security protocols and backup plans in place. 12 hours later, Elena found herself in a secured meeting room aboard a neutral space station in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The Zephyrian defector was unlike any alien Elena had encountered during her military career. Most Zephyrians she had faced in battle were large, aggressive creatures with thick armor-like skin and predatory features. This individual was smaller, more delicate, with intricate patterns of bioluminescent markings along her arms and face. Her name was Zarath, and she spoke human languages with surprising fluency. Commander Vasquez, Zarath said, her voice carrying harmonics that were both alien and oddly musical. I have studied your tactical records from Kepler Station. You fought with honor even against overwhelming odds. Thank you, Elena replied carefully. But I'm more interested in what you can tell me about your people's current military capabilities. Zarath activated a holographic projector, displaying technical schematics that made Elena's breath catch. The diagrams showed the internal structure of the Zephyrian stellar manipulation weapons, revealing complexity far beyond human technological understanding. These weapons channel stellar energy through crystalline matrices, Zarath explained. The crystals must be attuned to specific stellar frequencies, which requires precise calibration before each use. How long does this calibration process take? For major weapons targeting planetary installations, approximately 18 of your hours. For ship-to-ship combat applications, only minutes. Elena studied the schematics, beginning to understand the implications. What happens if the calibration is disrupted? The energy feedback destroys the weapon matrix. Potentially, it could destroy the entire ship. And how would one disrupt this calibration? Zarath's bioluminescent pattern shifted to what Elena interpreted as a smile, with precisely modulated electromagnetic pulses broadcast on specific frequencies that I am prepared to provide to you. Elena felt the pieces of a new strategy forming in her mind. Why are you helping us, Zarath? Why betray your own people? The alien's expression became somber. Because this war will destroy both our species, Commander. The Empire's leaders believe they can control stellar forces, but they are wrong. The weapons they have created are too powerful, too dangerous. If they succeed in their assault on Earth, the resulting destruction will, you're saying that, destabilize star systems throughout this region of the galaxy. You're saying that using these weapons against Earth could have consequences beyond our solar system? The stellar manipulation process creates quantum resonances that spread through spacetime. Earth's sun is gravitationally linked to dozens of other star systems. Destabilizing it could trigger a cascade effect that would threaten inhabited worlds throughout human and Zephyrian space. Elena felt the full weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about humanity's survival anymore. The fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance. Zarath, I need you to provide our technical teams with everything you know about these weapons. In exchange, I give you my word that you and your family will be protected, regardless of the outcome of this conflict. And what of the greater threat, Commander? Will you use this information only to defeat my people, or will you find a way to prevent the destruction of both our civilizations? Elena looked at the alien engineer who had risked everything to prevent a galactic catastrophe. I'll find a third option, Zarath. That's what humans do best. As Elena prepared to return to Mars with intelligence that could change the course of the coming battle, she realized that her time as Maya Chen had prepared her for this moment in ways she had never expected. The baker who had learned to find creative solutions to simple problems was now applying that same innovative thinking to the most complex military challenge humanity had ever faced. The Zephyrian fleet arrived at Mars exactly when Elena's updated intelligence predicted. Through the command center's main view screen, she watched as dozens of massive alien vessels emerged from hyperspace, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could reshape the fabric of reality itself. Elena stood at the center of the human defensive network, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every ship, platform, and sensor array under her command. The past 3 days had been spent implementing the intelligence Zarath had provided, modifying human communications equipment to broadcast the electromagnetic frequencies that would disrupt Zephyrian weapon calibration. All stations report ready. Commander, reported Colonel Chen from his tactical position. Elena activated the fleet-wide communication system, knowing that her next words would be heard by thousands of human personnel scattered across the solar system. This is Commander Vasquez to all defensive units. Today we face an enemy that threatens not just our survival, but the stability of our entire region of space. But we are not fighting this battle alone. We have allies among our former enemies, and we have intelligence that gives us a crucial advantage. She paused, thinking of the faces from Haven's Rest, the quiet lives that hung in the balance. Remember that we're not just defending military installations or strategic resources. We're protecting the right of ordinary people to live in peace, to grow food and raise families and dream of quiet futures. Every decision we make today echoes through the lives of billions. Commander, Lieutenant Kim reported from the sensor station. Zephyrian fleet is taking attack formation. They're targeting our main defensive platforms just as you predicted. Elena watched the enemy fleet arrange itself in the rigid hierarchical pattern she had studied for weeks. The Zephyrians were creatures of order and precedent, and their battle tactics reflected this psychology. They had learned from their defeat at Kepler Station, but not enough to truly adapt. Civilian sensor network. Report, Elena commanded. All transports in position, came the reply from Captain Rodriguez, commanding the improvised intelligence network Elena had developed. We're tracking every enemy vessel. Their stellar manipulation weapons are beginning calibration sequences. Confirmed, added Lieutenant Kim. Energy signatures match the pattern Zarath described. 18 hours until they can achieve planetary bombardment capability. Elena smiled grimly. 18 hours was exactly what she had planned for. Phase 1, initiate. All strike groups to attack positions. The human fleet began moving with choreographed precision. Instead of rushing to defend the obvious targets, Elena's forces spread out across a vast volume of space, approaching the Zephyrian formation from unexpected angles. The civilian transports that had been dismissed as non-combatants suddenly revealed themselves as mobile sensor platforms, providing real-time intelligence on enemy movements. Enemy fleet is responding to our dispersed formation, Colonel Chen reported. They're trying to concentrate fire on our strike groups, but they can't target all of them simultaneously. Phase 2. Execute. Begin electromagnetic bombardment. Throughout the human fleet, modified communication arrays began broadcasting the frequencies Zarath had provided. The signals were invisible to human senses, but their effect on Zephyrian technology was immediate and dramatic. Multiple enemy vessels reporting weapon malfunctions. Lieutenant Kim announced with excitement. Their stellar manipulation arrays are going offline. Elena watched as several Zephyrian ships began to drift, their massive energy weapons suddenly silent. But the enemy fleet was adapting faster than she had hoped. The remaining functional vessels began repositioning to protect their damaged allies, while continuing their own attack preparations. "Commander," Colonel Chen called urgently. "Lead Zephyrian vessel is adjusting its calibration sequences. They're trying to work around our interference." Elena had expected this development. The Zephyrians were not stupid, and their engineers would eventually find ways to compensate for the electromagnetic disruption. Phase 3. Activate. All ships implement Zarath protocol. This was the moment Elena had planned for, the application of intelligence that went beyond simple technical specifications. Zarath had provided not just the frequencies needed to disrupt Zephyrian weapons, but detailed information about their command structure and decision-making processes. Human strike groups suddenly converged on specific Zephyrian vessels, targeting not the most heavily armed ships but the command and control nodes that coordinated the enemy fleet's activities. Elena had identified these vessels using behavioral analysis rather than technical scans, watching for ships that other Zephyrian vessels oriented themselves around. "Direct hit on enemy command ship," reported Captain Williams from Strike Group Alpha. "Multiple secondary explosions detected." The effect on the Zephyrian fleet was immediate and cascading. Without their primary command vessel, the rigid alien formation began to fragment. Individual ships continued fighting, but the coordinated assault Elena had prepared for dissolved into chaos. "Commander," Lieutenant Kim's voice carried a note of alarm. "We're detecting massive energy buildup from the damaged Zephyrian vessels. Their weapon systems are destabilizing." Elena felt her blood turn cold. This was the scenario Zarath had warned her about, the possibility that damaged stellar manipulation weapons could trigger the kind of cascade effect that would threaten multiple star systems. "All ships, implement emergency protocols. Begin evacuation of personnel from damaged enemy vessels." "Commander?" Colonel Chen looked confused. "You want us to rescue Zephyrian crews?" "I want us to prevent a galactic catastrophe, Colonel. If those weapons detonate uncontrolled, the quantum resonance could destabilize our sun and spread to neighboring systems." Elena opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet, broadcasting on frequencies Zarath had identified as their emergency communication bands. "Zephyrian commanders, this is Elena Vasquez of the human fleet. Your stellar manipulation weapons are experiencing catastrophic failure. We are prepared to assist in evacuation procedures to prevent system-wide destruction." The response came after several tense minutes, transmitted in heavily accented but understandable human language. "Human commander, this is Fleet Admiral Kreshtar. Why do you offer aid to your enemies?" "Because the alternative is mutual annihilation, Admiral. Our intelligence indicates that uncontrolled detonation of your weapons will threaten both our civilizations." Another pause, longer this time. "We accept your assistance, but know that this does not constitute surrender." Elena smiled, remembering Dr. Reeves's wisdom about treating patients regardless of politics or personal history. "Understood, Admiral. Sometimes survival requires cooperation." The next 6 hours were unlike anything in the history of space warfare. Human and Zephyrian crews worked together to evacuate personnel from damaged vessels and implement emergency containment procedures for the destabilizing stellar weapons. Elena coordinated the effort from her command center, drawing on lessons learned during peacetime crisis management rather than traditional military doctrine. Zarath proved invaluable during the containment operation, working directly with both human and Zephyrian technical teams to develop procedures for safely disabling the malfunctioning weapons. Her presence also helped convince skeptical Zephyrian crews to trust their former enemies. As the immediate crisis passed and the threat of cascade detonation diminished, Elena found herself in direct communication with Fleet Admiral Kreshtar. "Commander Vasquez." The Zephyrian leader's voice carried notes Elena was learning to interpret as respect. "Your tactical capabilities are impressive, as is your commitment to preserving life, even at cost to military advantage." "Thank you, Admiral. I learned during my time away from command that victory means nothing if it comes at the cost of everything worth protecting. Perhaps there are alternatives to this conflict, ways for our peoples to coexist without mutual destruction." Elena thought of Maya Chen's quiet life, of communities where different people work together toward common goals. "I believe there are, Admiral, but that conversation requires people willing to listen to each other, instead of just planning the next attack." 6 months later, Elena stood in the observation deck of Haven's Rest Station, a new diplomatic facility established in orbit around her former home planet. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see human and Zephyrian vessels docked side by side, their crews working together on joint research projects. The war hadn't ended completely, but it had evolved into something closer to controlled competition. Both species were learning that cooperation yielded better results than conflict, especially when facing the vast challenges of an unexplored galaxy. Elena still held her military commission, but her role had expanded to include diplomatic and scientific coordination. She had discovered that the skills she had developed as Maya Chen, the ability to bring people together and find creative solutions to complex problems, were exactly what the new era required. "Commander," came a familiar voice from behind her. Elena turned to see Zareth approaching, now serving as chief liaison for Zephyrian scientific exchange programs. "The morning briefing is about to begin," Zareth continued. "The joint expedition to the Andromeda Relay is requesting final approval." Elena nodded but took one more moment to look down at Haven's Rest itself. The farming community continued its quiet existence, its residents now supplemented by a small population of Zephyrian agricultural specialists learning human cultivation techniques. Chen Wang had kept the bakery running as promised, though he now served an increasingly diverse clientele. Dr. Reeves had established a medical exchange program, training both human and Zephyrian physicians in cross-species medicine. Maya Chen's dream of a quiet life had been impossible to maintain, but Elena Vasquez had found something even better. A life where peace was not just personal sanctuary, but a foundation for building something larger and more meaningful. As she walked toward the briefing room where human and Zephyrian officers would plan humanity's next step into the unknown, Elena touched the identification tag she still wore. Maya Chen would always be part of her, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories came not from defeating enemies, but from helping them become allies. The universe was vast and full of challenges, but for the first time in her adult life, Elena Vasquez looked toward the future with hope rather than dread. She had learned to dream of more than just survival. She dreamed of civilizations growing together toward something greater than either could achieve alone. Her secret past had indeed hit the headlines, but it had become the foundation for a future none of them had dared to imagine.